Welcome to the Accounting Arc Podcast, where analysis, reaction, and comedy collide to tackle the big topics from the world of accounting and beyond. Join our trio of transformation agents as they discuss the hottest topics in and out of the profession, from breaking down industry trends, to reacting to everyday events, to uncovering the hidden humor in numbers. With wisdom, insight, and a dash of levity, they're proving that accounting isn't just about the numbers. It's about life. Because after all, accounting is in everything. The Accounting Arc Podcast starts now.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome back. Today we're gonna tackle something that I was gonna say it's controversial. I don't know that it's actually controversial, but it is kind of interesting because I was updating one of my presentations on the future or emerging technologies, and one of those was blockchain. And so when we started this, I asked the other two, so what do you guys think about blockchain? Like, should we stop talking about that as an emerging technology? Is it like dead already? So that's my question. Is blockchain dead?
I don't think blockchain is dead. I think blockchain is just maturing out of the, oh, we can use this technology for everything to, oh, that's not really practical. And let's talk about why it's not practical.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, isn't almost everything except cryptocurrency not practical on blockchain?
Well, today, maybe. I mean, one of the biggest things in our industry was, oh, we can have transaction level verification. This would create a situation where you never had to have an audit because everything would be verified openly and publicly, right? Which in its idea form is actually really incredible. And this is why I say it's not dead. But the execution form is almost impossible today. Right? We would have to infiltrate every bank. We would have to infiltrate everybody that's processing any kind of financial transaction, every GL system that exists, every credit card. I mean, just thinking about the mass number of companies of GL systems and make it all work together on the same protocol with the same blockchain. That's the piece that is just insurmountable as it currently exists. I mean, just look at like open banking. Look at FTX, who spent how many years now trying to get this one open banking protocol into the banks in the US. And that is still underway and not fully there, which if we had perfect bank feeds, it would be, you would know that it was working, right? But that's not happening. And we're a dozen years later, I think.
Which is why I kind of go, like, is it, while it is a good thing, and I agree with you, everything that you said, is it feasibly impossible to occur? I mean, realistically.
The question I have, though, like, I understand the challenges of using it in the financial world for financial transactions. But, as the hype of blockchain got created, we were talking about all types of use cases, thinking about like medical records or voting, and, many other places where having, an encrypted, secure ledger of information that could live on the blockchain seemed like a really great use case. And I'm no authority on blockchain, but I'm not familiar with any of those systems that ever got implemented leveraging this technology.
Okay, so let's backtrack to why was there hype around blockchain in our industry? I'll caveat, there's a whole lot of reasons.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, it was exactly that, right? It was this idea of seeing every single transaction and being able to validate that transaction.
So what are the implications with that? No or low audit, right?
Yeah, sure.
You have public validation. SEC filings would be a whole lot easier. Publicly traded companies, information would just be available. Taxes. The government could use that for taxes and understand all the transactions. Now, We do know that the US government, anyways, is reducing the dollar amounts for transaction reporting on a regular basis, and ensuring that more of that information is flowing to them, anyways, without blockchain. But blockchain would eliminate those reportings from banks, right? And would create a system where they just had the information, which is also kind of terrifying, but at the same time useful if they could just automate tax and nobody had to guess at it anymore. So US based, it might be really difficult. Let's look at like a micro economy. Like look at a country where maybe they only have one bank. Their one bank is the central bank. They can control the general ledger software that people are using, and even potentially eliminate general ledger software. You would just need a really good reporting package on top of the blockchain. I think it's totally feasible. So why hasn't anyone done it yet?
Well, we've seen, and now I can't remember which country it is. I'm sure Liz can find it real quick on a search. The country that adopted cryptocurrency. I mean, that's effectively what you're describing, right? Is they've adopted cryptocurrency as their norm, and then the question becomes,
El Salvador.
thank you. I knew it was South
You're
America
welcome.
somewhere. Had actually done that, but I think they were still having problems last I recall.
Well, I think there's two pieces of this too, right? Like having a national currency that is a cryptocurrency eliminates the need for a financial blockchain, right? But it also requires you to be doing all of your transaction in that cryptocurrency, right? Which is, a fiat currency in and of itself. Whereas if you were to put all of the transactions onto a blockchain that wasn't a currency, it would be agnostic to currency. It would just be whatever transaction is happening, and you could still accept whatever the legal tender is, and credit cards and other things.
It's interesting that you said financial blockchain eliminates the need for the other one, because I actually don't agree with that. To me, there is the financial side, but then there's also the financial related, but it's not the actual currency piece. For example, exchange of POs and invoices. Like a lot of that could occur separately, but it's the final settlement, the payment going back and forth, that really is the cryptocurrency or the digital currency side.
Yes.
And I think separate.
I agree with you.
Okay.
They are separate. There's a currency and then there's blockchain for other pieces. And you bring up a good point. There's more than just the financial transactions that are occurring in accounting systems and processes that could benefit from blockchain. Like you mentioned the PO process, right? Where you're matching. And why couldn't that be done on a blockchain? If you have an approved PO and you get an invoice, it should be done, right?
That is one of the areas that I thought had potential when it first came out, but the other thing I looked at was EDI, electronic data interchange, and the VANs, the value-added networks, which effectively creates the interchange of data for POs, for receiving, for invoices. It was everything except the currency side. that has EDI has been around since, I think it's the 70s. The VANs have been around since the 90s, and we haven't seen large adoption of those either. Which is why I kind of come back to the, could blockchain ever replace? Well, those things never saw adoption. Why would blockchain see adoption when those things can't see adoption? And we've had those around for way longer. I mean, it's 3 decades at this point.
It would take a regulatory change to get blockchain mass adopted, in my opinion, because without a demand, like a required demand, it's expensive. Right. It's disjointed, it's confusing, and in many cases, unnecessary. So I don't think it's dead. There's still a ton of potential for it. And also, it is not easy to implement.
So I will building on that, I will agree, because I think in supply chain, which is where we started going down a little bit, I think there's a ton of use there. The Walmart lettuce scare is always, to me, one of the great examples of they could actually track the lettuce back to the farm because of the way each of the handoffs was tracked on a blockchain, so they only had to get rid of the lettuce that they could trace back to the farmer, and then getting rid of all the lettuce across all the stores, which would have literally been millions of dollars doing that. So there's definitely some value there, but that's technically a non-accounting use of blockchain.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And I think there were so many of those use cases, and even property titles.
Hmm.
And they so many there's just like, yeah, I remember, back in, I don't even remember what year now, 2016, 2017, like creating kind of a blockchain 101 presentation just to begin to think of all of these ways that blockchain could be used beyond just, a general ledger. And I was really hopeful because it made so much sense, and your Walmart example was such a great example to talk about, because it was something that people could understand, and really appreciate. But I just haven't seen any other implementations beyond crypto that have been widely adopted. And I don't even know if Walmart's still using or doing anything with blockchain.
I don't
Them
know.
or yeah.
It is really interesting, though. I think when we look at it more holistically about the power of the the power of the technology is huge, but it requires so much cooperation in many different avenues for it to work correctly. Where crypto, I think, has been widely adopted because it is not actually requiring multiple parties to implement in a different way, right? It is
Right.
an implementation in and of itself that is then used by people
Yeah.
versus requiring an implementation in multiple places. I do think that there are technologies built on top of blockchain that people might not even know are built on blockchain. Like I know there's a few international payments gateways that are not just cryptocurrency gateways, but built on top of the blocks, we can say. Um, and then, I think that there's other places outside of just large companies like Walmart or, other people using it for logistics. Like I know IBM was doing that for a while. Um, and, I think that there's a huge opportunity in like voting, right? Like making voting systems safer and more
Oh yeah.
consistent, um, and more verifiable because we have so many issues with that in this country and people don't trust it. But of course, any new technology wouldn't be trusted anyway. So who knows what would happen there? But less hackable in many instances.
Right.
But I do think, if we look at it holistically, there are huge implications. It is just a beast to get across. But historically, every new technology that has hit our space and changed the foundational way that we do business has taken a very long time to get across the finish line.
I think you used an interesting word that we need to differentiate there, the way that we do business. Because that's the thing that needs to change. It's the way that we do business compared to the technology being available. When I listen to a lot of what the two examples, voting and Byron mentioned real estate registrations or property ownership
Title.
records.
Yeah.
To me, when I think about those two, the other thing that gets tied into that then is identity. Because how do
Sure.
I know someone is who they say they are, whether it's the transactors on the property exchange or it's the person voting? So that to me becomes another, when we start to look at those implementations, that becomes another roadblock or challenge for that adoption because it's, do we have this the ability to have this digital identity? And I'm trying to remember what it's called in blockchain, super something, um, where it's like, this is you and it's definitely you.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but yeah, you're absolutely right, and I just did a quick search, and I I will say there's a chance of hallucination in this search, but I did some stuff to try to eliminate hallucination. It does look like there are active implementations of blockchain in some medical record solutions. IBM has a few different solutions in supply chain and logistics that are being used by Walmart and Nestle. So, those are a couple where there appears to be like real implementations of systems leveraging blockchain technology, which is awesome. I mean, that's exciting to me.
It is exciting. But I agree, we have to go back to the fundamentals to make it work. But like if you look at history, right? So um, when we first got digital ledgers, they copied and pasted the 12 column paper into a computer and then took all of our subledgers and our general ledger. And it's only really now that some of that is starting to change in the way that the programs operate. And that, historically there were actually separate records for each subledger that then fed into a general ledger in the exact same way it did in the books, like the physical books that people kept. And now you're having reporting that is able to query the data source to give you a representation of what it looked like before, but it is not the same. And the end user generally doesn't know that, nor do they need to. And I think that that's, if we're going to implement blockchain inside of a general ledger in the way that it was pitched to us, right? The end user will have to adopt a completely different way of looking at information and understanding how accounting works before widespread adoption will happen. Unlike how you could kind of copy paste into a computer program, the old school process, you can't do that with blockchain. It doesn't work the same. So it creates a new way of doing accounting, and also a continuous close process that ultimately everybody wants, theoretically, but they are not comfortable with how that would look or how that would work. So we'll see.
You just brought up another thing that I think is challenging with blockchain in accounting, which is the fact that blockchain is horrible at querying and reporting. Completely inefficient. Blockchain goes back to linked list technology, which actually comes from the 70s. And it is, because it's a chain, it's not like you just take a table and go filter out and give me these transactions. You actually have to interpret the chain, the entire chain, to figure out which parts of the chain are relevant or not for what you're trying to report on.
Right. And that will, I think that with the emergence of some of the better language models, there will become ways to query blockchain data in a more consistent manner from what we are used to historically. But it is never going it won't be the same, and it won't look and feel the way that accountants are comfortable with. And so, back to change everything or change nothing. So is it dead? I don't think so. I think it still has huge implications. Do I think that there will be another iteration of blockchain that is better and maybe that has mass adoption? Probably.
If I were to interpret that to advice for people thinking of just kind of revisiting the idea, so we identified supply chain as some definite things, things like banking where you really need a good, reliable, and then I think the other differentiation, which we didn't call out, though a lot of the like cryptocurrency is a public implementation of blockchain. These other ones, Walmart, these other ones are private implementations of blockchain. And so the value is probably going to come more from a private implementation within an enterprise, because it doesn't require that collaboration and consensus around what it is. But if I can identify within my business, this is what I'm trying to do, and I need either this visibility into the chain of custody or movement, or the chain of who's doing what, and the validation of who's doing what, that's kind of the circumstances that I should be looking for. If I'm thinking I want to tell my IT team, hey, we should be thinking about blockchain for this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think with there's a lot of interconnectedness with other technologies, right? Like Web3, that will change as well. Like, I think that there are so many pieces of this that are human behavior and so many pieces of it that are technology limitations, as well as maximizing where people can make money, because we live in this society. And so if there is not a strong belief that a company building this could make a lot of money, it won't be invested in. And so until we have user readiness and user adoption in a way that's meaningful, we won't see a ton of development, because there's no real way to force accountants to change.
Which is why I wanted to kind of have that advisory piece just in there. Because I think if we can help them to understand when it should be used, when they should be thinking about it, we can hopefully help to start edge that change in there.
Slowly but surely. Just one ripple at a time.
One ripple at a time.
Absolutely.
Such is the way change occurs in our profession. So, well, hopefully that was helpful for some of you out there. You've got some ideas. I think in the end, you'll see the three of us, I guess, agree blockchain is not dead. But we have quite a bit of work to do in the accounting space to see more adoption. And there are some definitely valid use cases. So we hope that you can kind of check those out and let us know, by the way, if you've got it, send us an email or send us a message. Let us know how you're using it. Maybe we'll bring you on the show to talk about it.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a network for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply those innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. Find out more at our website, www.improvetheworld.net. And if you're interested in sharing your own transformation stories, please contact us there.